Well, Dave is ready. Heath is ready. I am ready for the show that only I have been waiting for. Adam's bold predictions here on fantasy football today. You know, we saved this one for Friday. Everybody's in a good mood for Friday, so they can just laugh off my bold predictions and be. No, actually, I think I have some pretty good ones here. I'm really excited to talk about them. Happy Friday, Dave and Heath. How about those Panthers?
Thomas, that was exciting.
Isn't that great?
Schaefer, it was exciting to see that OT goal and make it a series now with the Golden Knights.
It's really confusing for me as somebody who has been going through Friday Night Lights for the second time and crying like every other episode because I forgot that show is just a football tearjerker the entire time. But they are the Dillon Panthers, and so I hear "Let's Go Panthers," and I just thought you guys were watching the same show with me.
Talking legit tears. Like eyes are watery, like wet.
Like eyes are wet.
Face?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Like not like sniffling. Not my nose is not running, but certainly eyes are wet.
Okay. All right, let's get to the bold prediction.
Clear eyes, full heart, can't lose.
fantasyfootball@cbsi.com is our email address. Here is my first bold prediction. Detroit Lions rookie running back Jahmyr Gibbs will be a top 5 running back, just like Alvin Kamara was, and it'll be a similar sort of style. Kamara was a top 4 running back in his rookie season. Gibbs is currently RB17 on Fantasy Pros in their PPR consensus ADP. I'll give you guys some bullet points. I'll let you react, and then I'll try to explain more in depth with some statistics and things like that. But 1, he's better than David Montgomery. That's my belief. 2, there are plenty of running back opportunities in the offense. 2 years in a row, they've been top 9 in both running back carries and running back targets. 3, he's the best playmaker on the team. Amon-Ra St. Brown's a really good player, but he's not someone that's going to make a bunch of plays. So if they need explosiveness in their offense, at least for the first 6 weeks while Jameson Williams is suspended, Jahmyr Gibbs is the answer there. And he is a rookie first-round pick running back. And those guys just get touches. The only one who really didn't was Rashad Penny in the last 8 years, and to a degree, Christian McCaffrey. But those are my bullet points. He's better than Montgomery. He'll have his opportunities. He's the best playmaker on the team, and rookie first-round running backs get a lot of touches. Jahmyr Gibbs, Dave, will be a top 5 running back.
I think you're going a little overboard by saying that he'll be top 5. How many touchdowns do you think he scores this year?
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely the concern, and what would derail him, not just being from top 5, but it would make him a bust if he only had maybe 2 or 3 touchdowns. And he's not going to be the goal line back or anything like that. So I think he'd probably have to score at least 8 touchdowns with 70 to 80 catches to be a top 5 running back in PPR. So yeah, touchdowns are a problem.
Yeah, it's a big problem. And he really hasn't had the opportunity for short yardage goal line over the course of his college career. In fact, there are some stats about him from 2 different stops while he was playing college that are fairly damning about him being like a feature every down back as a rookie. Like, I'm excited about him. I'm ready to take him over Montgomery in PPR. No questions asked. He's a number 2 running back. The easy thing to say is that if DeAndre Swift can average 13 PPR points per game, then Gibbs should be able to match that. I don't think they'll hold him back, but he split reps at Alabama. He split reps at Georgia Tech. Only had 113 career snaps over 3 seasons in the red zone. He's only had 6 carries inside the 5-yard line in his career. That's 3 years in college, 2 different coaching staffs, 2 different colleges, all coming to the same conclusion that he is not exactly a guy that's in that type of situation. Shouldn't be a feature heavy workload type of running back. And I don't think the Lions have to use him that way.
That's
what keeps his upside capped.
That's not my case. He doesn't have to be. He has to have the catches. Like, I know he's not going to have
120 catches. Sure.
No, both Kamara and McCaffrey in their rookie seasons had 80 catches. So I said 8 touchdowns. I think it has to be at least 10 touchdowns.
Right.
For him to be top 5, but he's also got to have the 70 to 80 catches. So no, he's not going to be a workhorse, but I think, 15 or more touches per game, I expect. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. All right, Heath, your reaction, Jahmyr Gibbs, top 5.
I was really just enjoying you and Dave kind of arguing different cases against each other. That was more fun. But
yeah. So where do you land on it?
No, I mean like completely different arguments. Adam
Right.
was saying he's going to be a top 5 running back without being a workhorse running back, and you were telling Adam he was not going to be a workhorse running back. And I agree with both
I
of
think you have to be a workhorse running back to be a top 5 running back.
Well, Alvin Kamara's rookie year, just looking at that, like he had 120 carries that season, caught 81 passes, averaged like 12 touches per game. The reason it has to be super bold to project Gibbs to do that is Kamara averaged 6.1 yards per carry that year, led the NFL, has averaged basically 4.5 yards per carry since. Kamara averaged 10.2 yards per reception, has never averaged better than 9.3 since. He scored 13 touchdowns on 201 touches. He's had a couple of years where he scored at that rate. Like it takes an insane efficiency year to do that. Now, I think Gibbs could have one of those years, and maybe he has one of those years in his career. I think the touchdowns will be the problem for him being a top 5 running back. And I would not draft him before David Montgomery because I think David Montgomery is going to have 15 plus touches per game and score a whole bunch of touchdowns.
I think what really stood out to me was the workload that first round running backs get. I went back to the last 8 seasons. 12 running backs have been drafted, not including 2023, obviously. So we have to see what they did as rookies. The last 8 seasons before 2023, 12 running backs were drafted in the first round. I'm going to throw out Travis Etienne. He misses his rookie year. That gives us 11 running backs. 9 of those 11 running backs who were drafted in the first round had 15 and a half or more touches per game. Yeah.
How many of those running backs had the volume that Gibbs had in college?
I was going to ask the same question.
Kamara
might have.
Jacobs really didn't have a big
Jacobs
volume.
would be a good example, yeah.
Yeah,
he was one. No, they pretty much all did. But again, like this is really, first of all, he's got to have the catches. He's got to have. They've been, like I said, top 9 in both RB carries and RB targets 2 straight years. We've seen DeAndre Swift be on pace, I think, like a 60 catch guy. I think he's got to be more like 70 to 80 catches. Has to happen. And then I could just see a scenario where David Montgomery is simply not getting it done. And by the midway point of the season, they say, all right, it was 8 carries a game for Gibbs. Now it's 13, something like that. And he's just so much better. And also, I was really sold on him in the pre-draft process when I heard, a lot of respected NFL people who follow this stuff, who liked him better than Bijan Robinson and just absolutely loved him. And obviously the Lions did too. So I'm buying in. All right. Okay, cool.
And obviously the good thing about it for you is that you don't have to draft him like a top 5 running back. You're not going to draft him. It's easy. It's not bold to say Bijan's going to finish top 5.
Yeah.
And Bijan's going to be a first rounder. Are you going to be so bold as to take Gibbs in round 2? Like, let's say round 1, you're up, you take McCaffrey or Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. Round 2, is that where you're going to target Gibbs? Late round 2?
No, I don't think you have to. I mean, I think right now,
don't, but you're going to be bold on him.
No, I won't. No. And that's
round
the other
round 3.
It would have to be back end of round 3, not a top 30 pick. Once we get to 30-ish, like T. Higgins is off the board, yeah, then we start. Everyone seems a little risky, unless the top 3 quarterbacks are there.
So here's my question.
Yeah.
Because I think this part is interesting, is if you have an early pick in the first round and you get to the 4th pick of round 3 or the 3rd pick of round 3, like what do you actually think Gibbs is going to be? Because if you believed he was going to be a top 5 running back, you wouldn't wait until round 4 because you think you could maybe get in there.
No, you're not gonna. He won't be there.
You don't think he's going to be there in round 4?
In round 4? No, not in round 4.
Yeah, he's probably going to end up on my bust list then.
He's right now on the Fantasy Pros list, RB17. I said he's 36th overall. Mm-hmm. So if you love him and you have an early 3rd round pick, you have to take him. He's not going to make it to you at the end of round 4 in a 12-team league. Yeah, look, we'll see what the reports are and all that. The problem here with Gibbs is that there is the downside that David Montgomery just gets a lot more work. But let me give you one more comparison because we talked about Kamara's rookie season. Let's talk about McCaffrey's rookie season. He had almost the same amount of touches as Alvin Kamara, but much, much less efficient. So they both had 117 to 120 catches and 80 to 82 carries, 80 to 82 catches. but Kamara gained 468 more yards and scored 6 more touchdowns. Kamara was the number 3 running back in fantasy. McCaffrey was the number 9 running back in PPR. I don't have what he was per game. It's probably a little bit lower than that. But that was 200 touches basically for McCaffrey. And because he got the 80 catches, he was the number 9 running back. And that was at 3.7 yards per carry. Might surprise you that McCaffrey was that bad as a rookie, and 8.1 yards per catch. So I do think as long as if he can get to 70 catches, and if he gets 80 catches, forget it. Then he's gonna definitely return 3rd round value. There's some touchdown luck, then he could be a stud. All right. Let's get to the news and notes here. Oh, you guys ready for some soccer tomorrow? It's Inter and Manchester in the UEFA Champions League final. Big stuff. And it is live coverage beginning at 1:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS. Our world-class team will be on the pitch for a really exciting event in soccer, and I absolutely cannot wait for it. I'm starting to get a little bit more into soccer now. Got it on Paramount Plus. It's on CBS this weekend, as I just mentioned. So this is two of the most celebrated, one of the most celebrated soccer tournaments in the world. Manchester City and Inter in the UEFA Champions League final. Again, 1:30 Eastern on CBS. All right, news and notes for you here. Dameon Pierce was asked how he could improve, and he said he wants more yards, more touchdowns, and to have a bigger role in the offense. Will he have a bigger role in the offense, Heath?
I think he could have a bigger role in the passing game, potentially. I think you kind of have to look at Dameon Pierce's season in segments last year. I don't think he will have a bigger role than what he had for like 2/3 of the season, where he was just almost entirely the guy except for on passing downs. Like he was one of the only guys getting rush attempts. But if you're looking at the entirety of the 13 games that he played, like he still had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games last year with 15 or fewer carries. I wouldn't be surprised if he stays healthy if he doesn't have any games this year with fewer than 15 carries.
Would you take Dameon Pierce ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs?
I would. Now I'm usually with Pierce as one of those backs along with Miles Sanders that he's the top guy on my draft board like a round and a half before I draft him, because I know that there's nobody else in our drafts that wants to draft Miles Sanders or Dameon Pierce. But yeah, I think Dameon Pierce should be a 3rd round pick.
Wow. Dave, your thoughts? That's a pretty bold take.
Bold
prediction.
He is in that same range for me as Alexander Mattison. Gibbs is in that range too. We're talking earliest late round 3, most likely round 4. But he's got huge upside. I think he's more talented than Devin Singletary. I said that when Singletary signed, and I still believe it.
Yeah.
And I think he's a talented player who's going to lead the way behind an offense that's going to be better than it was last year.
For sure.
And this is the coaching change that they made, the new scheme. You heard Pierce, or you might have read Pierce say it's very running back friendly. That's because it is. And they like to use multiple running backs, but one guy tends to get the lead role. I would not go like 30th overall on this tier of running backs. Dameon Pierce does not belong at 30th overall. But if you need a running back and it's late round 3, you can go for it with Pierce. Rather get him in round 4. Rather get him in round 10, Adam. Can I get him in round 10? No.
Yeah,
but
you could try.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm desperate for a running back, maybe it's a non-PPR league. Maybe that's where he falls in.
Yeah, 30
I think he'll
overall.
score more touchdowns than Gibbs.
30 overall is a really interesting spot. As I would just look at the consensus rankings, that's kind of where, right around there, to me, is a drop off. You've got guys like T. Higgins and Devontae Smith and Chris Olave, depending how you feel about them. It might even be earlier than 30. But then there's so many of the question marks come basically after round 2 ends, or very early in round 3. That's why I talked about Jahmyr Gibbs in that range. Because what am I going to do? Am I going to take TJ Hawkinson over Jahmyr Gibbs? Hell no. Am I going to take DK Metcalf or Ken Walker? I mean, all these guys have questions, right? So if you like a guy, I mean, you could talk yourself into taking Dameon Pierce once those players start coming off the
I
board.
mean, Dameon Pierce, basically, if you just look at what he did on a per game basis after week 1, because he wasn't the starter week 1, he only played 29% of the snaps. Like once he became the starter for Houston, he was 13.5 fantasy points per game, like RB 15. That's worthy of a 3rd round pick, unless you think he's going to be worse for some reason this year.
It's worthy of a 3rd round pick unless you feel like he doesn't have nearly as much upside as Gibbs or ETN or a lot of the wide receivers that go in that range. Say, oh yeah, I don't want to just settle. If you're drafting him at his ceiling, then I don't know that I take.
I don't have any reason, and I don't think we often say that what a player does their rookie season is their ceiling. I don't have any reason to think that what we saw on that atrocious offense last year is the best fantasy production that Dameon Pierce could give us.
Excuse me. This offense is going to be bad this year.
It's going to be considerably better than last year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Last year was
why.
CJ Stroud is good. He is a good quarterback.
Good as a rookie?
What?
Yes.
He's going to be
Good as a rookie?
Davis Mills had one of the 20 worst quarterback seasons in terms of several different advanced metrics last year. He was awful.
They have probably the worst wide receivers in football.
In the AFC, probably.
Yes, fine. They're not going to be a good offense, I don't think. I mean, CJ Stroud would have to have a...
No, they're not going, but they were...
They have a bad offense. They have a bad offense.
We're not comparing Dameon Pierce's offense this year to a league average offense. We're comparing it to Houston's offense last year.
Yeah, I get that, but I don't see why you're so optimistic that they lose their best wide receiver. And
he wasn't any good last year. I don't know if he didn't try or if he just hit the wall.
Or he had a terrible
Allen
quarterback.
Robinson, but he was really bad last year. He wanted out, but why I'm not so excited. I'm just saying where I would draft him is basically what he did last year. And I do think it's possible he could be better than his rookie year on the worst offense in football.
I think what I would say about him hitting his ceiling or drafting him at his ceiling, Dameon Pierce, is that they have added Devin Singletary, and that is a big deal because he had almost every carry from week 2 until he got injured. I mean, he dominated carries in ways that only, like a Saquon Barkley would do. And he wasn't really, great, and we don't know what his passing game role is going to be. So I actually don't really think Pierce's ceiling is much higher than round 3. What's the best outcome? What's the biggest upside for Pierce realistically for you?
I think his biggest upside is what he did in his first 8 games. We throw out week 1, he barely played.
Right.
That was 15.2 PPR points per game. That's not a top 5 running back. It's definitely a top 12.
Yep.
But that's the ceiling. And I'm not drafting him at that ceiling. He's not a top 12 running back for me. He's literally 16th.
Right, but if you draft someone in the 3rd round and you believe they could be a top 12 running back, they do have ceiling above where you're drafting them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's why you're drafting them there.
Right.
I'm not drafting floor plays around.
I get I'm probably being too pedantic about this whole thing. I really feel like too often if we don't like a guy, then his ceiling is whatever he's done before. But if we do like a guy, then he has this imaginary ceiling that is much better than anything he's ever done before.
No, I mean, look, I think ETN versus Dameon Pierce is probably what you're talking about. Perception would be that ETN has a higher ceiling than Dameon Pierce. They might be drafted similarly. ETN definitely ahead of him right now. First of all, there's a comment here. I couldn't be less concerned about Singletary. The way you feel about Pierce might be how you feel about Singletary, basically, because I am a little bit concerned. I do think Singletary has a role on this team, and he's a solid backup running back. Some people think nothing of him, obviously. But I think, who's the more explosive player? Who's the more talented player? Who's on a more exciting offense? For most people, that's going to be Travis Etienne, and they're going to see Etienne having a much higher ceiling than Pierce. But if you just look at what they did last year,
Pierce was better.
Pierce was he better? I actually don't even know because you have to
week 5 on ETN averaged 13.4 PPR points per game.
Right. And I would say is higher.
We're talking about the biggest chunks of their 2022 seasons where they were playing a lot. And that's the kind of role that we're hoping that they have this year. And Pierce was better than ETN on a per game basis.
He was? I thought he was in the 12. Why did you stop at week 8 for him?
I believe for Pierce?
Yeah.
I said his first 8 games.
Well, why did you stop there? Because you got to use 2 weeks.
I think he got banged up, didn't he?
No,
we're trying to compare the best stretch for ETN. He's also talking about after week 5 for ETN. We're talking about the best stretch for ETN and the best stretch for Pierce.
No, because
we're only talking about the best stretch of the guy Adam likes.
Don't talk about
the best stretch of the guy that has no upside.
You're wrong.
Yeah.
Week 5 is when
only Aizer stats.
Hey. Week 5 is when James Robinson got traded. That is when you start factoring in for ETN. It was a huge deal. That's when ETN became the starter.
The fact that James Robinson mattered at all to Travis Etienne with the way James Robinson looked last year and played after he left.
They traded him to make Etienne the starter. They saw exactly
because he was awful. They should have just benched him. They were lucky they got something for him.
Okay, right, exactly. They did. They got rid of him so they could make it. So if you're going to take ETN sample size, you have to go. Like, you can't take Ken Walker sample size and use the Rashad Penny games. You have to take Walker after Penny got hurt. You have to take ETN after James Robinson got traded.
That's fair.
First game.
That's
right?
what we did.
Rashad Penny and James Robinson last year were not the same thing.
No, but Ken Walker was a backup. He was a backup before they traded Penny.
I'm saying I think it's more fair to do that with Walker than it is with ETN. But
I just to know what ETN could be as the lead running back, you'd have to start with the Giants game when Robinson got benched and then he eventually got traded. Pierce had the job from weeks.
When they went and drafted Tank Bigsby, should we look at what he did without James Robinson versus what he did with James Robinson?
You could make that case. You absolutely. I think Bigsby is a thorn in the side of ETN. Nobody's talking about it.
It might not be Bigsby. It might be Dearness Johnson.
Could be.
I think the number you're looking for from Pierce is 14 PPR points per game. Week 2 through the end of the year, that includes the game where he barely had a lot of work. That was against Miami in week 12.
Yeah, they got crushed. It wasn't because of hurt.
It's 13.8. 13.8.
Okay. All right. Well, that was quite a news item, and it's really our only one. Bryce Young has been elevated to the starters, so you can expect him to start early and often for the Carolina Panthers. We're going to take a break. 2 more bold predictions when we come back on Fantasy Football Today. All right, here we go. My bold prediction on Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown will be a top 10 wide receiver. He is currently wide receiver 32 in the Fantasy Pros consensus PPR rankings. This really comes down to how good he is, and that is a question I don't really know. But first of all, we shouldn't act like Kyler Murray is missing the entire season. He might be ready early in the season. We just don't know right now. He should be the clear leader. Marquise Brown should be the clear leader in targets. And we had this exact sample size last year. No DeAndre Hopkins with Kyler Murray. He was the number 5 wide receiver in PPR. Marquise Brown was number 7 per game. We've also saw smaller samples. Like, we saw a sample of 4 games in 2021 where Christian Kirk was the number 1 receiver without Hopkins and with Kyler Murray, and Kirk was on pace for 140 targets. He wasn't great with them, but he was on pace for over 102 catches. So my point is, Marquise Brown could fall into so many targets and over 100 catches, and like Jarvis Landry and Larry Fitzgerald back in 2017, they didn't really have great seasons, but they were top 5 wide receivers, both of them. That could happen with Marquise Brown. He will be a top 5 wide receiver. Book it.
Top 5. You're changing
your 10 earlier.
Top 10 wide receiver. Don't book top 5. Book top 10.
It's in his profile. It's absolutely possible, but it'll be Blake Bortles style. I think the Cardinals' offense is going to be absolutely atrocious this year. Their defense isn't good. James Conner is going to have to carry them when he's healthy. When he's not healthy, it'll be a lot of ugliness overall, and I think they're going to have to throw a lot, and there could be a lot of garbage time for Hollywood. But target's going to be there. He's had a decent catch rate. It hasn't been elite over the last 2 seasons. Certainly last year with Arizona, it was 62.6%. His yards per catch was a career low last year. That might have been a byproduct of just the offense in general. I haven't done enough research on what this offense is going to look like this year, but I don't think it's going to be anything close to what the Cardinals were doing under Cliff Kingsbury.
Right.
Yeah.
I've done some research. I would not be surprised at all if the Arizona Cardinals are worse offensively than the Houston Texans. And I think
how many games you base that on Kyler playing when you say that?
Let's say Kyler I don't think Kyler's going to be very good this year. So I don't really care. I don't think Kyler is a very good pocket passer. And I don't think coming off of an ACL in a year when they're not going to be competitive, he's going to be running near as much as he has. But also I think it's really that was a bad use of Aizer stats when you talked about what Marquise Brown did with DeAndre Hopkins last year, because Kyler Murray was healthy for all of those games. And maybe even more importantly, the team averaged 42 pass attempts per game in those first 6 games. They were on pace for 717 pass attempts.
Yep.
This is going to be, I would expect, with Gannon now taking over as the head coach and a first-year play caller, one of the who is their offensive coordinator?
Drew Petzing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Formerly of the Cleveland Browns.
I would anticipate
in his life.
One of the lowest offensive play volumes and one of the most run-heavy based on script. They're not going to be like the Falcons or the Titans because they'll be behind by too much. But I do not think we'll see very many 40 attempt games at all. So I think the target opportunity for Marquise Brown is not near as high as last year's first 6 games would suggest.
Yeah, but okay, they're not going to be, just because this guy was coming over from the Cleveland Browns. Like, they don't have Nick Chubb and they don't have that offensive line.
No, I'm not. I don't care that he came over from the Cleveland Browns. What I care about is he has no cred as an offensive play caller. First off, he does not. He is going to do what the head coach wants him to do. The head coach is a defensive head coach. And also, and we've talked about this in years past, a lot of times if you have a guy calling plays for the first time, they are a slower pace because it takes him longer to figure out what he wants to do and to get the play into the quarterback. He's not ever done that.
Right. Takes him a while to get into a groove.
Right. And so I think we saw Cliff Kingsbury for even first year in the NFL. It wasn't as high as it was after that in terms of play volume. So I don't think they're going to be pass heavy at all. And I think they'll be slow.
Yeah. First of all,
always crazy, but always fact.
Facts.
That's just an Aizer stat.
Getting tired of the Aizer stat slander here on today's show.
No, it's just the selective usage. I like Aizer stats, and I have asked for the official handbook of Aizer stats. But today, because you're trying to make the case for bold predictions, you're getting a little out over your skis on a couple.
I don't think that's true. Okay, first of all, I have absolutely no problems with using Travis Etienne's sample size after the James Robinson trade and even the game.
I don't either.
Okay, so that's part of it. Okay, but in terms of this, like
I had a problem with you saying we have to count week 1 for Dameon Pierce when he wasn't the starter, but we don't count any of. Well, you didn't want to hear anything. You said he was averaging 12 fantasy points per game.
I never for Dameon Pierce, I never count week 1. In fact, I always say don't count week 1. I count week 2 and on. They've stopped. There was a mid-season stretch where Dameon Pierce was awful. It was back-to-back games against Washington and Miami,
right,
off the top of my head.
That was his ceiling.
That was, I don't know why you just removed those.
50-something per game.
They count. So I'm counting the whole season beginning in week 2 for Dameon Pierce. Anyway, yeah, look, all I'm saying is Marquise Brown is the clear-cut number 1 wide receiver on this team. And even if they are not a pass-heavy team, he could still get a huge target share and a lot of targets. I don't really know from a target standpoint, why should I expect him to have fewer targets than Drake London this year?
I don't know that you should. I don't know why you would think he's as good as Drake London.
Well, he might not be, but I think he could have even more targets and more catches than Drake London.
I can see it.
You know,
he had a 25%, 25% target share in those 6 games you talked about.
Right.
Which, if they are league average in pass attempts, which I'd bet significant money they're below league average in pass attempts, but if they are league average in pass attempts, that'd be 140 targets over a 17-game season. Right. That seems fair to me. That's not going to make Marquise Brown a top 5 wide receiver or a top 10.
If he catches over 100 balls, he'll be right in that discussion. Look at the He will be in PPR. He could,
What's the reason to think that he's going to have the best catch rate of his career?
catching 100 out of 140 passes is like an elite.
He caught 91 out of 146 in 2021 in a run-first offense in Baltimore.
That was the best catch rate of his career, I believe. Yes. He got
technically his rookie year was better, but no, actually last year
would go down in theory if his ADOT went down, and he just became, a more like it's a different offense. If they don't use him as downfield as much, and he's just getting peppered with targets in a short area.
And I know you don't particularly like yards per target, but he has been mediocre to bad.
Yeah.
For 3 years. I mean, for his career, he's at 7.2. That's not much better than Deontay Johnson.
Right. Who's flirted, who I believe has finished as a top 10 wide receiver.
Because he has the ability to earn 10 targets a game. Marquise Brown is not.
Like I'm saying that there's a possibility that he can get close to that.
Right.
That's kind of my argument here. He could target, and like it's not like Marquise Brown is so great. On the other hand, this next bold prediction is more of that type of argument. Jerry Jeudy will be a top 5 wide receiver, currently wide receiver 25 in the consensus rankings on Fantasy Pros. Okay, Jerry Jeudy top 5. That's my last one. Were you going to
I'm getting flashbacks to 2 years ago when I was going crazy for Jerry Jeudy.
Oh, I thought you were getting flashbacks to me going crazy for Cortland Sutton last year.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah.
Look, what can I tell you about Jerry Jeudy that you don't already know? We thought he was this outstanding talent coming out of Alabama, and he just has not reached anywhere close to that really until the end of last year. In the end of last year, he averaged 20.1 PPR points per game in his final 5 games. Sutton played in 3 of those 5, and he averaged 17.6 in those 3. I also think that Russ played better, and the offense in general was better in Denver in those last couple of games. I think Jeudy is certainly capable of getting north of 15 PPR points per game. I think he's their best receiver. I think Sean Payton does have a great way of scheming his receivers tailored to their strengths. His strength is his route running, so they'll be able to have him zigzag all over the place. Russ can find him. Their timing should be down after playing together last year. He could get there. He's got that. He's got that in his profile. And I'm trying to do my best here of not judging the Broncos on last year. I really want to believe that they're going to be better. There is a part of me that makes me nervous, though, just because what if Russ has lost it? Then I don't think Judy's got much of a shot.
That's the first concern. The second concern is that I think Jerry Jeudy's rapidly approaching injury prone. And after this year, if he gets hurt again, he probably is injury prone. So like him playing 17 games would be a huge accomplishment. I mean, he could play 10 and be a top 5 wide receiver in those 10 games. I do think this is a good time to bring up one of my favorite Jacob Gibbs tweets, because Jacob Gibbs is obviously the person who has brainwashed Adam into thinking that Jerry Jeudy is going to be a top 5 wide receiver. And Dave, if you could look up for me while I'm reading this, like what is an average-ish number of routes for a wide receiver, a good wide receiver to run in a season? Like how many routes approximately would a good wide receiver run in a season? Because in Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy's career routes together, Jeudy has 28 more targets, 680 more yards,
Wow,
and 108 more fantasy points.
Oh my!
He has. It is astonishing when those two have been on the field together. Cortland Sutton is an absolute bum.
Yeah.
And Jeudy is a super duper star. That is 586 career routes they've run together. I think that's kind of similar to how many routes a guy might run in an NFL season, maybe even a little shy.
The average number of routes that a wide receiver ran this is no good. That number was 224, but that's like every wide receiver.
No, like 15.
You want a receiver that played 17 games in a decent offense. I don't know. I think you're right about it being maybe a little high as for routes run.
How many routes did Devontae Adams run last year?
Devontae Adams ran 618 routes, but that's an elite receiver.
But it wasn't a team that threw 700 passes.
True.
So
yeah.
and 586.
No, we should take the best receiver on a team that was league average in pass attempts.
Right.
The main point I'd make here about Jeudy is that on a team last year that scored the fewest points in football, he had a kind of I've said this many times, but if you're new to the offseason, he had a breakout that really nobody noticed because he played 3 games where he left all 3 of them super early. He played 1% of the snaps, 14%, and then 38, which isn't that early. But in those 3 games, he had 5 catches for 76 yards combined. If you remove those 3 games, he averaged 15.8 PPR fantasy points per game. That is top 15. That was more than Jalen Waddle. That was more than Devontae Smith in their full seasons. So he had this breakout, and a lot of it happened in the second half of the year when I think Russell Wilson must have been on the phone with Jacob Gibbs because it started out where Wilson was throwing to Sutton all the time, and it just wasn't working. And then he just started throwing to Jeudy, and Jeudy just dominated targets and dominated production. And, in the last 7 games of the season, it was even better. And he had this mini breakout. He's definitely a guy, Jerry Jeudy, that I am targeting in round 5. And I do think he's going to need Russell Wilson to bounce back for sure. But I do think he's got, top 5 is really rich. He's probably not going to get there. I definitely think he has top 10 potential. And at the very worst, I think what you got from Christian Kirk last year, you could definitely get from Jerry Jeudy. That was
okay.
Player.
I would not. Christian Kirk was top 15 last year.
Not per game. I think he was like 20th.
I do not think that is the floor for Jerry Jeudy. There's we got a new coaching staff and a guy that has not established himself as a star wide receiver and a quarterback that was awful last year. The floor for anybody involved in the Broncos passing game is unstartable.
You know how many targets per game Jeudy averaged last year?
Well, which games are we counting?
We're counting every game that he played.
I'll go 6.8.
6.7. That was
no kidding.
40th among wide receivers.
But I bet if you only look at the games where he played at least 60% of the snaps, then that's not a joke because I did that for the outlook that I wrote because he had, I think, like Adam said, 4 or 5 games. What we don't know is if it's a good use of Aizer stats because we shouldn't hold those games against him, or if he's a guy who's going to leave 3 or 4 games early every year, and so it's a bad use of Aizer stats.
Yeah.
Well, that's just a Heath side.
I cut off that sigh. Yeah. All right. Well, there's a lot to like about Jerry Jeudy and definitely a player that I target in the mid rounds. Let's take a break and read some emails when we come back. More fantasy superpowers for you to get into here.
Oh, great.
You were around a couple days ago. We'll be right back. All right, fantasyfootball@cbsi.com is our email address. Here's an email from Colin. And where is he from?
Boston, Massachusetts. Sorry for being lazy, but I'm trying to count Jerry Jeudy targets.
The optimism around Garrett Wilson seems anchored in the potential he exhibited last year, plus a quarterback upgrade. That sounds eerily familiar. I'm looking at you, Heath, a la DJ Moore last year. What are the chances that Aaron Rodgers pulls a Russell Wilson, doesn't gel with the Jets, and Garrett Wilson is the biggest bust in the second round? We all saw it happen with DJ Moore and with the Broncos separately last year.
That you should not ignore those chances. If I did not think that those were legitimate chances, then I would have Garrett Wilson ranked early in round 2 and probably in my top 8 or 9 wide receivers. Aaron Rodgers was not good last year, and he could be washed, and he could just have a bad attitude and go into the darkness.
How would you describe that sound Heath just made? Like a grunt sigh.
Yeah, that was more grunt. That was angry too.
Yeah.
That was a, screw this guy grunt.
I'm putting it in I'm making an edit note because I think I got to clip that.
Yes, absolutely.
We had a little debate. I was doing a show earlier today with, you'll hear it on Saturday, Jacob Gibbs and Matt Harmon. We had a little Garrett Wilson versus Amon-Ra St. Brown debate. Where are you guys on that one?
They're back-to-back in my PPR rankings. I'll take St. Brown. In non-PPR, it's Wilson.
I'll take St. Brown in both, but I love both. And I do think, like, going back to the Jahmyr Gibbs as a top 5 running back and him catching 80 passes. What does this pass distribution look like when Jamison Williams is back, assuming that Sam Laporta is actually like part of the offense?
You know, I got to be honest with you. I don't concern myself with that. I have a simpler, not necessarily more correct approach to that. And it is just Jahmyr Gibbs has the potential to be a star, and they need to get the ball in his hands. And they have shown under Ben Johnson that they throw the ball to their running backs quite a bit. So I'm not really concerned about that. I think Gibbs has a special role. He's the guy out of the backfield. He'll get his catches even when Jamison Williams, who's not going to be a high target guy, I don't think, is on the field.
Yeah, I think obviously I do think about it that way, and I think ARSB is a star and pretty locked in. It's at a 30% target share or close, and I think Sam Laporta is going to earn targets. So I don't know. It'd be interesting if they're throwing the ball 20-25% of the time to their running backs too.
Yeah, it would be. I understand. I understand a lot of reasons to doubt Jahmyr Gibbs. I think when we do at the end of the year, when we do a lessons learned episode, I am predicting the future. We're gonna say, man, I'm just gonna bet on talent from now on, and I'm not gonna worry about that stuff. And the most talented players are gonna rise. And I trust the Lions offense to get Jahmyr Gibbs, who they drafted 12th overall. They're going to use him effectively. And like I said, he is the best playmaker on their team, at least for the first 6 weeks of the season. He needs to be involved. They will get him involved.
I think one of the lessons learned might be we should stop crowning guys from going from terrible to average and then expecting the next year they're going to be amazing. And teams, coaches and teams.
Wait, who?
The Lions.
They were sixth. They were fifth or sixth in scoring last year.
Jacksonville. Well, right, but they were like these. I think these teams that jumped up to the 9-win conversation, most of them are going to be bad this year.
Yeah, the Lions. I mean, like I like the Lions better than the Giants and maybe better than the Vikings. You know,
well, the Vikings won 13 last year,
but they were the luckiest team in football history, and that's not even a joke. Bill Barnwell wrote a great story about the Giants and the Vikings. You should check it out. But the Vikings, I think this was, he did
the thing that I've been joking about doing for like the last 4 months.
Yes.
With Dable and Nagy. Like
yes.
I've been making that joke since November.
About, yes. There are a lot of coaches who have first year success and then it goes in the tank.
Often offensive gurus.
Yeah. But you have to throw O'Connell in there as well, not just Dable. It's like you can't just pick on Giants fans. Anyway, next email here.
I want to clarify. I'm not just picking on Giants fans. It's a difference between going from average to great and going from bad to average in terms of wins.
I don't have any problem believing in the Lions offense. I'm just going to say that.
Okay.
Dave, no
one else does either.
And they added a very talented piece, and after 6 games, they're going to get another very talented piece. Like it's okay to buy into them, and they were 5th in scoring last year. What's wrong with that? They don't need it. They'll be top 10 in scoring, I think. Dave, you agree?
Close to it.
I'd put the over/under at 14.
Right, that's fine. That's still like plenty good, and it doesn't even matter. Right? It doesn't even matter for running back production. It doesn't matter that much.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
Who needs
That's why we talked about it so much with Dameon Pierce.
No, you talked about how much better they were going to be. No, it doesn't. Like you think I hate Dameon Pierce? He was a very good running back on a terrible offense last year. Just proving my point. It matters so much more for wide receiver production than it does for running back production. I've done the numbers. I've done the research. Mm-hmm. So I'm not just
literally one of your arguments for Gibbs over Pierce was that he is going to be on a good offense and Pierce is going to be on a bad offense.
Yeah, but I think we'd all agree that the Lions are going to be a better offense than the Texans.
Yeah, that is a bonus, but he's also the 12th pick in the draft. I think he's going to be I think he's more talented than Dameon Pierce. I think he's going to be able to do a lot more.
Right.
Pierce is interesting. I mean, Pierce is a violent runner, fun player, but Gibbs is more suited for this current NFL style.
Let me ask you this question, and then you can move on to the next email if we have time. Hopefully we don't. If Gibbs were on Houston and Pierce were on Detroit, would you say that Pierce would be a top 5 running back and Gibbs would just be okay?
No, I don't think Gibbs. I don't think Pierce would have the passing downs role to be a top 5 running back necessarily, but I do think that he'd be an easy 3rd round pick if he were on Detroit.
And Gibbs?
On Houston?
Uh-huh.
Late 4th round?
Okay.
What do you think?
Probably. No, half the reason I'm excited about Gibbs is because we've seen this team utilize a running back just like him.
Right.
In the way that we expect Gibbs to be used.
Yes.
And Gibbs, at this point in their careers, should be better than DeAndre Swift was last year.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Swift was very good when he was on the field, but just wasn't not on the field much. All right. This was an interesting episode today. We went kind of roundabout. Apologies. Finish off with Steve's email. Grade the trade. Gave up pick 1.5 and 2.12 in this year's rookie draft. 1.5 and 2.12. Got Dalvin Cook, pick 2.1, and a 2025 first round pick.
I think I love it.
The bad part here, if you're not looking at the picks, is you are moving down from 1.5 to 2.1.
Right.
But you are getting Dalvin Cook. You are getting a future 2025 first round pick. You're also giving up 2.12.
I don't love it. I just like it.
So, did he have a super flex or not?
He did not. And we also don't know how many.
He didn't say that.
How many teams are in the league? I'll love it if it's like a 10-team league.
No, it's not.
I like it if it's one QB.
So it's probably a 12-team league.
I like it if it's one QB. I don't if it's super flex.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a like. It's not a love.
This is from Trey from Memphis. Keeper question. Can keep 6 players for 4 seasons before they go back in the pool. All right. So PPR, 3 receivers and a flex. Who would you keep? 6 players. Diggs in round 1, Dobbins in round 3, Eckler in round 6. Yes. All right. You know what? Why don't we eliminate the 3 that he's definitely keeping? Eckler in round 6, Garrett Wilson in round 10, and he's going to keep Christian Watson in round 14. So now we need 3 players. Diggs in round 1, Dobbins in round 3, Kirk round 7, AJ Dillon or Alan Lazard in round 8, James Cook in round 13, Tua Tagovailoa in round 16.
I'd keep Tua.
I'd keep Kirk.
I think I'd keep Kirk too. It just seems like a fair value. I think I would draft Kirk and Dillon before round 7 and 8 respectively. So those would probably be the other 2.
Okay. This is from Frank. Okay. Oh, this is a response to the Superpowers email. He's got a whole bunch of superpower. So let's see. How can we recap? He wanted to start this superpower fantasy league where each team gets to draft a superpower, and I think they also get a weakness, and these can be used against them throughout the season. So here are some of his options. Yay or nay. Start every game with 15 points. As a superpower. I don't like that one. It's too simple.
Okay. I don't like any of this.
Okay. 2 times PPR.
Yeah, that would just be like you'd get some sort of magic gloves that you get to wear, like the hands. You get extra points for the catches. I like that one.
Swap out the opponent's flex.
I like better that you can make one of their flexes disappear.
The copycat. No first round pick, but you get to mimic one of your opponent's roster spots for your own.
What does that even mean?
I don't know what that means.
You're facing Patrick Mahomes this week, and now Patrick Mahomes is your quarterback too.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
This
is a fun one. Fast pass to the waiver wire. No need for fab. Auto add who you want when you want.
I like that one a lot. You can. It's got to have like you can use it 1 or 2 or 3 times though.
Yeah, I thought of a good superpower. I automatically win every week I play. Can I get that superpower since we're doing goofy crap to
That doesn't seem like
make
it
the
goes
league
with the
even more complicated than they need to be?
I think that's against the spirit of the rules, Dave.
Yeah, Dave, that's terrible. What's with you? Best baller. You can just put your best flex in your flex spot from your bench.
Okay. It's a good one.
2 times points for kickers and DSTs.
We already had that one. It's the iron boot, and you get extra points for all kicking.
Select your opponent. You cannot repeat your opponent until you've played everyone. That's a fun one.
But you get to select your opponent on Tuesday after the scores are in.
No, that's not fair. Let's see. What's a good one here? This is a good one. Immunity. No powers work against your team. If a power boosts your team, it's nullified when playing this opponent. I like the immunity one.
Oh, he's got the night goggles one in there that you get extra points for night games. I like the night goggles.
No kickers or DST can start against your team.
That sounds terrible. Why would you make that your superpower?
That could be like 15 points.
That's like making your superpower like in the Marvel universe that you can crush apples with your hands. Like, it's cool, but you're not going to save the world.
Here's the last one that I'm going to read. The Pirate. If you win, you can swap rostered players, a quarterback for a quarterback, a running back for a running back, etc. Opponent can defend one player. If you lose, the reverse of that, and your opponent can pillage you with the same rules. I like the Pirate.
By week 5, you'll have absolute crap on your team. This sounds great.
It's got to be a limit to how many times you can use the superpowers. Dave, why don't you come up with a concept and present it for us next week?
A new type of fantasy league?
A superpower league.
Can we do some Heath parenting advice?
Here's what I think you should do. If you're going to do a superpower league, everybody picks a superpower, and then they all go in, you write them down, you put them into a hat, and then you randomly pick your superpower, and then you use it. You can't think of your own. If you pick your own out of a hat, that's fine. That's how. If you're going to do BS like this, that's what you should do.
Yeah, the winner. One of our comments says the loser has to give the winner the deed to their house. All right, what's your parenting advice, Heath?
So I've been receiving some calls and some texts in the second half of the podcast here because I'm not as professional as Dave, and I don't leave my phone somewhere else when I'm podcasting. But my 13-year-old, who I don't really have a lot of concerns about his safety. He's 5'11" and weighed in about 155 pounds yesterday, so he's going to take care of himself. But he
beat me up. He can beat me up.
100%. Yeah,
so bad.
Yeah, he was. We were doing curls yesterday. He's ready. Has been asked to go to the beach with a friend that we've never met. That is a girl.
Yeah, what's the problem?
Nice. Those curls are paying off.
He's at a different friend's house right now.
How old is he?
13.
What beach? Crowded Beach?
No, it's a Boca Beach. We don't.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with this.
Yeah. This is we're going through a lot of these coming of age things right now in this age 12, 13, 14. Like,
hold on.
I mean, obviously you're going to get binoculars and stare at him from.
I don't live that close to the beach. It's like,
you follow him. Obviously.
No, I'm not going to the beach.
You've got 2 kids that are over the age of 21. What did you do with them when they turned 13 and they wanted to go out?
They did not live at the beach when they turned 13.
No, but they went
both
to
came
other
here
places.
after 14.
Well, what's wrong
They
with
probably,
the beach?
went to, what's the name of that amusement park in Kansas City?
It's Worlds of Fun.
Yeah.
It was like an hour and a half away from us. So no, they didn't go there a lot with their friends. I think you really don't understand where I came from, Dave. Like you've known me for almost 9 years, and I feel like you just don't. There were not maybe you went to the roller rink. That would have been the place they might want to go.
So would you allow him to go with a girl to the roller rink?
Right.
Yeah, that's a totally different thing. That's a totally different thing.
I don't know.
Why is it totally
It's-
different?
That's a business establishment that you go in and pay money and stay inside there with people who work there and are responsible for the safety of everyone there. The beach is the Wild West.
The beach is the Wild West in Boca?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I haven't been to the beach. I haven't been to the beach in a while. I guess
You better watch out.
it seems fine to me, but what do you think you're gonna do?
I'm going to let him go.
You know, Mildred and Maury are gonna pinch your kids' cheeks on Boca Beach. What a night! Here's a quarter. You've got great biceps, Sonny. You better watch it. You know what? You better, ask if they want to go to the library instead.
Yeah.
All right, I'm learning a lot here. This is years away from me, but I'm learning.
Polar opposites of parenting going on this show right now. Polar opposites.
Heath doesn't strike me as a cautious parent, but we just don't know anything. We still just don't know anything about Heath. It may not even be his real name for all we know. All right, well,
it's not my first name.
I did know that. Have a great weekend, everybody. Beyond the Box Score airs tomorrow, and we'll talk to you Monday on FFT.
Stay away from Mr. Furley.